G'day, it's Jerry here. Today we're looking at the cheapest solar lights you can purchase off TEMU. I don't know whether that's true, but they were 10 solar lights for $10. So at $1 a piece, I don't think you can get them much cheaper. So we're going to do an unboxing, a teardown, and a review. Thanks for joining me. Think about subscribing to my channel. Let's get into it. Okay. So what do we got here? Documentation. Throw that away. We seem to have some adhesive stickers. And we've got our little lights. I've already taken one out and I've had it charging today. So I'll show that to you in a second. Okay, so we've got some screws, wall adapters, plugs. So we don't need this anymore. Okay. So here we go. As you can see, these are designed to be mounted on stairs or on the top of a fence or something like that. So first impressions. Well, it's cheap plastic. Not terrible, but cheap. It's got sort of a plastic insert there, which is frosted, and it's got all the little bits in there to make the light come out. And we've got a little tab here to stop the battery from discharging before you start using it, which is good. It's always good to see. Pull that up. So it has one single LED in there that looks to be warm white. I guess that's what I ordered. And you know what? For a single LED, that's not too bad. It's nice and diffused. And you know, it's more than adequate for what I would want it for, which is actually I want to put them on my stairs going up to my house. I thought it was time to illuminate them, and so I like the idea of these. So it's not really for producing a lot of light, it's for effect and a little bit of light just to guide the way. So yeah, it works. Good, that's a good start. Product name, Solar Wall Light. Well, it's got a nice little sticker and it's properly certified. Yeah. Yeah, first impressions, cheap. That's what we're expecting. So the first thing that I note about this, and it's got me a little bit confused, is see this lug here? That's holding this plastic panel in, but what it's also doing is it's preventing this from being able to be mounted flush up against anything. Can never be mounted to a straight edge. Because of that, it would always have to be out a little bit. There'll have to be a gap. That's weird. Okay, so immediately that's a red flag for me. That's like, I don't want that. I want it to be mounted flush. And the second thing I noticed about it, pardon me, is because it's longer here and shorter here, you can't just sit it on there. It won't sit. It'll fall off. You do have to mount it. Anyway, there's not going to be much to this teardown, but let's get on with it. Teardown time. So this clip is holding this in, and I guess we just trigger the clip. Ta-da! So that's going to keep turning on if I do that. So, yeah, it's a piece of plastic, nicely made. It's brittle, so it's not going to survive a fall if either of these pieces fall on the ground. So there's that. So there's not much to it. It looks as though we have a 600 milliamp hour rechargeable battery, which is quite reasonable, I would say, for a lonely LED. We've got a single LED, we've got a tiny circuit board. It looks like it's got a resistor there for reducing the voltage. And I'm guessing that's a transistor here. Hang on, we'll get it out in a minute. Essentially how it works is when it's receiving power from the solar panel, it's charging the battery. And when it's not receiving any power from the solar panel, it's turning the light on. So as I cover it, it turns on. And that's all she wrote. Right, let's get it apart. So there is our, what is that, nickel metal hydride battery. Let's just check the voltage that it comes from the factory with. It's supposed to be 1.2, so 1.254. I imagine it's supposed to be like 1.3 or something if it's charged. It's usually the way it is. When it reaches the nominated voltage on here, it's basically flat. So yeah, so we've got the solar panel coming in here. And we've got a little circuit board. And we've got a number on this chip. I will go and look it up and we'll see exactly how this works. So I looked on the internet and couldn't find anything about this particular IC, but I believe it's just a rebadged common garden light IC. What I did was I reverse engineered the circuit and came up with this, and then compared that to some of the common garden light chips, and I found this one, the YX8018. The circuit looks pretty much the same. So you can see here that the solar panel is going to pin 3 of the IC. So we've got that. The positive is going to pin 4. So we've got that as well. We've got the inductor up here and the LED going between pin 1 and pin 2. So I'm pretty sure that this is the correct one. I'll leave a link in the description to the datasheet. You can go and have a look yourself. It's pretty interesting as a circuit. There's plenty of different variations on this circuit. This appears to be the simplest. It's a dawn till dusk circuit, meaning that it simply charges when there's enough current being produced by the solar cell, and when there isn't, it turns the LED on. It doesn't seem to have any current monitoring as far as discharging the battery, so it will just simply discharge the battery until it can no longer operate the circuit. Okay, so let me explain the circuit as I understand it. Not an expert, so take that into account. But when the solar panel is producing current, the IC detects that and it allows the path of the current to go down directly into the battery. And that charges the battery, and the IC does not let the LED turn on. When the solar panel stops producing current, it then shunts the battery through the LED. Now there is an inductor up here, and the purpose of the inductor is actually to boost the voltage from 1.2, for instance, up to something that will actually run the LED, which is more like 2 to 3 volts. The next step is that I want to take a few basic measurements in this circuit so that we can find out exactly what current is involved. And then we can do some calculations to figure out how long it takes to charge the battery, how long the LED will remain lit. And then we're going to do some testing. So if you're not interested in the geeky stuff, look down in the description. You can just jump ahead to the conclusion regarding the light. Otherwise, stick around and let's take some measurements. For the measurements, I'm going to be using my handy Aneng multimeter / oscilloscope. I bought this so that I could probe around circuits to gain more knowledge, and this is an ideal opportunity. Not only can we use it as a basic multimeter and take some current and voltage measurements, but we can use the oscilloscope part of it to look at this inductor. The way that this inductor works is the chip is producing an oscillation that allows this inductor to boost the voltage to run the LED. Without it, there isn't enough energy in the battery to force the LED to operate. I'll just take a couple of quick measurements. The rest I'll do offline and give you the results afterwards. But let's just see what happens if I put it in line with the battery while the LED is lit. 11.5 milliamps is its basic draw when the LED is lit. The other thing that we need to know is how much current does it draw when it's not lit. In other words, its idle state. It looks like we're using 8 microamps. So that's the current being drawn by the IC itself, which is not a lot. So that's good news. The other thing that we want to do is have a look at the oscillation that's supposed to happen across the inductor. So we'll just probe the inductor and we're getting 2.7674 volts peak to peak. Okay. I've put my notes into a document which I will leave a link to down in the description in Google Docs. This was easier for me to do than trying to read my own handwriting. You can skip this if you're not interested in the geek stuff. I'll summarize everything in the next chapter anyway. Here's what happened. Just a summary. The battery is rated at 600 milliamp hours, and I had 2 lights that I wanted to test. And one of them I took, it had the voltage that it came out of the packet with, which was 1.25 volts. And another one I charged up externally with an external charger and right up to 1.41 volts. So that one was fully charged. I took some current measurements. So I put the multimeter in current mode between the battery positive of the battery and the battery positive of the PCB, and it read 11.5 milliamps. So that's the total draw that the circuit is drawing when the LED is lit. I also did it when it was in its standby state, so it was neither charging and it didn't have the light on. So this is the draw that the circuit is doing when it's not in use. But the battery is still in place. And that was only 8 microamps. So it's using almost no standby current at all. I tested the solar panel. The output was basically 2.5 volts. And in full winter sun here in Melbourne on a 15-degree day with no clouds in the sky, I pointed the panel directly at the sun and got 30 milliamps. So that I would estimate is the absolute maximum that this solar panel can produce. So then on to the testing. So what I did was I took the 2 lights and I set up a camera with time lapse on it, and I left them go overnight and then calculated how long they'd been on for. So the first light, which had the lower battery voltage, gave us 9.25 hours of light before it shut off, and the other one, which was fully charged right up to its maximum, actually didn't give us much more, so 9.75 hours. And that surprised me a little bit, but I think it's explained later on. So I then took some readings when the lights had stopped and found that the battery was at 0.9 volts, and after the battery had been removed for a while, it had bounced back to 1.18 volts. I then did some tests where I charged it. So I took the lights outside, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. They started at 0.9 of a volt, and by 5 p.m. they'd both charged to 1.34 volts. So that's good. And so I did the time-lapse thing again, and this time we got 7.75 hours, 8.75 hours. So the battery life is already going down here. Now, obviously it hadn't been fully charged during the day. I also noticed that the battery this time dropped down to 0.8 volts. Yeah, I think I've already mentioned this, that I believe that this is a clone of this particular chip, the YX8018, which is a very common solar garden light chip, and it's specialized for this. It uses dual thief circuitry, hello Big Clive, to boost the battery up to the voltage that it needs to power the LED, which is about 3 volts. Now it turns out that this IC is incredibly efficient at actually boosting the voltage, 80 to 90%. But there are some caveats to that, which we'll get into in a bit, and the inductor that it uses in the circuit is set to 120 microhenries. Now, there'll be a link to the datasheet down below if you want to go and take a look at this chip. It's pretty amazing, and the way that this circuit is just the simplest form of this circuit, I think. But the real problem here is, as you've probably guessed, if you've got a 600 milliamp hour battery and it's only drawing 11.5 milliamps, then you should be getting something like 52 hours of lit LED. But that's not what's happening. We're only getting 9 to 10 hours maximum. So what's causing this? And I've done a lot of research into it online, of course. I'm not an expert. And I was pretty interested to find out that poor quality batteries weigh less. And you can simply weigh them, and it will give you an idea of whether or not you've got a good quality battery or not. I mean, not that I expected that these would be, but I measured them on our kitchen scales, and it was 6 grams. Now the internet says that between 8 and 12 grams is a good quality battery. So this indicates that the battery might not even be at the capacity that it's rated at. I mean, it could just be a poor quality battery, it could be a battery that's been used before, or it could actually be a 200 or 300 milliamp hour battery being rebadged as 600. So we're estimating that the real capacity is around 150 to 250 milliamp hours. Yeah, and one of the characteristics is high internal resistance, which actually causes the voltage to drop off rapidly when they're under load. So this IC stops operating probably just when the voltage drops down too low for it to boost up enough to run the LED. It probably doesn't have current monitoring or anything like that in it. So for an estimated 200 milliamp hour battery, that's only 70% of its capacity is actually being used. So now we're down to 140 milliamp hours. So this particular IC is quite efficient at boosting the voltages, but that changes as the battery voltage decreases. So it starts off at 80 to 90%, and then as the voltage drops, so does its efficiency, and therefore it uses up energy quicker. So I did a bit of research on the internet, trying to figure out how long a really good quality nickel metal hydride battery could last. And it seems that, 2 to 3 years is the answer if they're a good quality battery and they're not mistreated and they're not just overly discharged. I think with the quality of battery that I seem to have here, I'll be lucky to get 6 months out of it before it's completely dead. We'll have to wait and see on that. Okay, so that's about it. So I think that these are very cheap lights, and they're let down by the cheap battery. I don't think that the IC in it, there's anything wrong with that. I think it's actually a very clever component, and it's doing absolutely the best that it can. And the solar panel seems to be producing quite a lot of energy for its size. So I think it's good quality as well. Just a quick note, I'm not going to name and shame the seller that sold me these. I don't think that they have any idea about what they're selling, and certainly for the price that I paid, I wasn't expecting a great deal from them. Yes, these solar lights are cheap and relatively low quality, but it's the battery that is the real problem. There is no way these batteries are at the capacity that they're advertised. They are of such poor quality that you can literally see them degrading every single night that they're on. 10 hours is the absolute max you can expect to get out of these lights. I was hoping to get 6 to 12 months out of these lights. I'm not even sure I'm going to manage a couple of months. Well, lessons learned. Battery quality is key. If you don't have a good quality battery, it doesn't matter what else is going on, it's not going to last. Obviously, capacity matters. If you can get a hold of a solar light and check the current draw, you can make a really accurate prediction as to how long it's going to last. Solar panel efficiency didn't seem to be a great deal of a problem, even for this cheap solar light. And it doesn't matter that it has a simple circuit. As long as the IC that is in there is clever enough, you're going to get good results for a solar light. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. This has been a lot of fun, and it's actually led me to the conclusion that I want to investigate solar lights a little bit more. So I've decided that I'm going to build up a test rig for testing solar lights, which will probably include using a microprocessor and some specialized circuits that measure voltage and current. That way I can wire it directly into solar lights, place it outside and get consistent readings on voltage and current over time, days, weeks, months even. I'm not sure whether anybody would be interested in seeing a video on how I go about doing that. If so, put a comment and let me know. I'm also going to create a playlist of solar lights. If you're interested in that, think about subscribing to that playlist and you'll get updated as I go through more solar garden light adventures. Okay, catch you on the next video. Ciao.